And today, with obviously the explosion of S&C and at the university level and master's degrees, like at St. Mary's University, obviously getting behind more data and collecting of data. Where's that marriage between being able to build that good technical coaching and, of course, layering in all of the science and data gathering behind that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think so. If we talk about our program, program is first and foremost driven by trying to help people become the best coaches that they can be. So kind of coaching really takes primacy, I would say. You then have, okay, well, how are you going to integrate the scientific literature and the technology into your practice? Our approach to teaching that is more based around discussing principles of, well, how do you use evidence to inform your practice, than actually, and so that students become critical thinkers and people who think deeply about what they're doing, and that if students have those skills, that then actually, the research itself is just ammunition that feeds into your thought process and that directly informs the way you coach.
Yeah, that's terrific and very well said. And when you look over the landscape, whether it's at the university level or the elite professional level, where do you think there's still some opportunities to be made in terms of whether it's on the technical side of coaching or whether it's how data and science are integrated into the system?
I think there's huge opportunities for improvements to be made. Again, one minor rant that I have in the book is this culture of this culture, or this idea that's been promoted by British sport, and in particular British cycling, of, okay, well, the way that they get better is the accumulation of marginal gains. That is that, yeah, okay, well, if we can find 1% here and 1% there, that's how we make big improvements in performance. It's always been my experience working with elite support that in very many areas they're a very long way away from having tapped out the potential of just doing the basics well. And so, yeah, I think there's a great many places that we can go, and that we're a long way from seeing the ceiling of human potential, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it, to see what could be done and can be done. And when you talk about potentially some of those roadblocks or hurdles to some of those fundamentals, are there certain areas in particular, or an example that you might be able to give to really highlight that?
Yeah, so an interesting example maybe is one thing that's very, very big in the mythology of British cycling is that they had this Secret Squirrels Club. And the Secret Squirrels Club was the team that was doing all of the technical development in terms of the bikes and equipment that the riders were using. Mm-hmm. And years and years ago, I saw a presentation by Chris Boardman where he was talking about kind of what he was trying to do in the presentation is that he was trying to illustrate that that the Secret Squirrel Club was really, really responsive and adaptable, whereas, and so he was presenting this as really, really great best practice, whereas for me, all I was hearing was examples of poor planning. So, for instance, before, I think it would have been the Athens Olympics, they had kind of the engineer who worked on Chris Hoy's bike. They kind of, the athletes had gone into holding camp, and apparently they'd kind of said, okay, well, your job's done now. You can go off on holiday. And so this engineer had, gone home to Brazil or something, but then kind of when the athletes had gone into camp, lo and behold, Chris Hoy's bike had broken. So they were then kind of telling this story of how they'd got the engineer over Skype, which 10 years ago would have been pretty unusual, and that they were using a hairdryer to heat up X or Y component, and managing to kind of use the everyday household items that are around in order to fix Chris Hoy's bike.
MacGyver it together. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, I mean, I was just perplexed by the idea that, okay, well, why didn't you let the guy go on holiday after the games? It doesn't seem to me that hard to predict that you might need the bike engineer during the competition.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is amazing how so many things can come down, especially in retrospect, to just planning and really thinking ahead, right?
Yeah, and there's like, if you get into it's always a dangerous game to start looking at the way that certain athletes are training and saying, okay, well, these guys could be better if they were doing this or that. I mean, that's a very dangerous game to get involved in. But it's pretty common in say team sports, for instance, that all of the athletes do exactly the same program. The rationale being that they're a team, and so that they need to team build by doing all the same things. When actually, I can see some rationale to that, but you still kind of, I think kind of you could still maintain some camaraderie and have a little bit of individualized training, and I find it hard to believe that wouldn't result in some greater improvements.
Absolutely. And, Dan, dovetails into my next question here, which is, throughout your career in California, English Institute of Sport, working with numerous professional elite athletes, what were some of the biggest lessons that you learned, perhaps through challenges, perhaps not, but the biggest lessons that you learned along the way?
I'll tell you my biggest professional failure as a coach. And that was, or to give some context to it, when the EIS started up, there was this big challenge of, okay, well, we were all strength coaches, sports scientists, et cetera, and it was our job to go in and talk to coaches and try and persuade them to listen to us when they'd never had sports science teams before. And the culture within the EIS was always really this idea of softly catch a monkey. Just go in, listen a lot until you're asked for your opinion. Mm-hmm. That's great, but it doesn't always work.
I might never ask.
Yeah, and certainly what I view as my biggest professional failure was when there are certain times that came where, well, actually, I should have taken a stand and said, actually, you know what, I don't think that's very good for this and this reason, and I think you should be doing this, rather than just smiling and nodding and waiting for them to ask me to tell them why I thought their program was bad.
Absolutely. And Dan, is that just a function of sort of experience and things, or is now you would have done so, or environment even? Like, what are some things that you can put your finger on that might contribute to that for folks who are in that similar situation maybe today that are listening in, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a difficult, it's a difficult judgment call to make, because sometimes I mean, if you sometimes it's not appropriate for you to just be shouting constantly what your opinion is, especially if you're a junior member of a sports science support team. But on a personal level, I think when I was younger, I always tried to avoid conflict, and actually now I've discovered that kind of in my professional life, I seem to people value me more if I just say what I think.
It's a great piece of advice for sure.